walkie-talkie. It's directional, so it picks you up from wherever. You don't have to be like right on top of it. It's up your red if it's on.
Russ, you have to hit join meeting, remember? You have to hit join meeting on here. Oh, yeah. Okay. They're not ready yet. Oh, I think so. Well, I think you can hit it. I hit it, and I'm good to go. Okay.
Okay, I think I'm in there. Anybody there?
Yeah, we are here, Russ. I think that we're good. We're good to go. Can we make sure that everyone joins the meeting? Russ, can we make sure everyone joins the meeting?
Yeah, I think I did, but I hit it again anyway.
Okay, I'm just going to make sure before we start. I'll check with everybody. Just Diane hasn't joined the meeting.
Sure.
All right, welcome everybody to the Sunrise School Division Board of School Board meeting for May the 2nd. My name is Paul May, I'm the board chair, and for the million people that are watching online, welcome to you. Today, before I call the meeting to order, we have 6 trustees that are with us in person. We have 2 trustees that are on the line, Trustee Dent and Trustee Reed. And we have 1 trustee that is not able to make it tonight, Trustee Smith. Thanks. So I'm going to call our meeting to order. And we have O Canada being sung by Cole Dugald School. So please stand if you can do so. Thank you to Ecole Douglas School for that. We have our treaty acknowledgement, and I'll ask Trustee Rowan to read that out, please.
We acknowledge the traditional land upon which Sunrise School Division resides as Treaty 1 territory. We honor our partnerships with Canada's original peoples and respect the gifts of Indigenous history, culture, and language. We commit to moving forward in partnership with our communities in a spirit of collaboration and reconciliation.
Thanks, Melissa. So before we start, we also have, besides the trustees that we talked about, we have Superintendent Timko, our Secretary Treasurer Thiessen, our Assistant Superintendent Fielberg, our board support Stacy Bonato. We have two of our principals here that are with us. We have Robert Pankratz and we have Elizabeth Reddycop from two of our colony schools. We also have some guests that have joined us that are going to join us a little later. So we have Nella Altamar from the NDP, the education critic. We have Kathy Machowski, the local NDP candidate. And Kath, I don't know who your other person is, and so if I can just for the record go ahead and introduce them, I'd love to.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Malaya Marcelino, and I'm the MLA for Notre Dame. It's in West Winnipeg.
Well, welcome, and thank you very much for coming. So we have the adoption of the agenda, so be it resolved the board approve the agenda. I need a mover and a seconder. Moved by Trustee Nichols, seconded by Trustee Boytson. Any questions to it? Hearing none, we'll vote. So it shows that it went 8-0. A reminder is that we have one of our trustees, Trustee Smith, that is absent from tonight. So thank you for that. Chair's comments. So a reminder that if you have any questions tonight, send the questions to jody.thiessen@sunrisesd.ca. Name and address of the sender to be included in the email, and we'll try to answer any of those questions later on. We often share a story. So I'm going to open it up to trustees to share a story of something that's happened within your ward or within your schools over the last little while. Floor is open. Trustee Rowan?
I'd like to start out with a huge shout out to Craig School for taking our SCI band travelers in when they were storm stayed on their way home from Edmonton. While the roads were not ideal, it sounds as though the company and community at Craig School were very welcoming. I'd also like to mention that Oakbank Parents for Ukrainian Education is having their AGM tomorrow evening at 7 p.m. at Oakbank Elementary School. They're looking for volunteers to help make all of the magic they bring to the schools happen. If you are free tomorrow evening, I'd encourage you to attend. And finally, I wanted to thank Ecole Douglas School for inviting me to their Health and Wellness Expo that they held with their students. I really enjoyed the representation from the True North Foundation and Mickey Moose for their morning keynote address, and having the opportunity to make a tiger in jeans out of plasticine at the Mad Libs Plasticine Workshop.
Thanks, Melissa. Anyone else? Trustee Nichol? Oh, you want to wait? The floor is yours.
First of all, there was 5 varsity badminton players went to the zone play in Niverville, and one of the girl players placed first in the zone, so they'll be going on to provincials. For us today, the grade 12 biology class got a compost project in the school, and they're going to be using the compost to work or plant with the elementary kids, because the elementary kids have a school garden on the playground. Grade 5 to 8 students demonstrated their learning at the first annual EduFair. If you don't know what EduFair is, it's very similar to a science fair, but you can pick any topic that you want. It can be mathematics, it can be English, it can be French, it can be anything you want it to be. I guess probably not anything, but something appropriate. So they had that on sometime last week. The other thing that is coming up, and so there's an invitation to anybody that would like to the community picnic. The Whitemouth School has a community picnic June the 1st. Starts at 5 o'clock. Everybody is welcome. I'll give you a few more details the next meeting, just to remind me when it will be.
Thanks, Don. Anyone else want to share? So I'll share too. This past week, we've had some career expos in our schools, particularly health career expos, and they've gone very well. So kudos to Parview School and Lac du Bonnet. Those are the two that I know. If there's any others that have had them, and again, we know that we need to be going ahead and promoting healthcare in our province, and it's great to see them in the schools. Talking to our students, so thank you for the people that have organized those health career fairs that have gone on the past 2 weeks in two of the schools that I know for sure. Kathleen, I turn it over to you.
I have two things to share. So I got a report from the Terry Fox Foundation for this year, and I am pleased and proud to say that the Sunrise School Division has raised $14,887.85, and our top three fundraising schools, Centennial is leading the gate at number one with $2,211, Edward Schreier comes in at $2,045, and then Whitemouth School at $2,024. So kudos to all the schools who did some Terry Fox fundraising. It is very much appreciated. We also have two staff members, Larissa Robertson and Elizabeth Brannigan, who have received certificates of merit from the Reading Council of Greater Winnipeg, so shout out to those two teachers.
And Trustee Rowan, I do want to share with you is that I did give a call to the principal of Craig High School, and I called also the superintendent of Prairie South School Division in Saskatchewan to say a big thank you to for putting up our students as they were traveling back from Edmonton. And do you know what, talking to both of them, it was, you know what, I'm sure our kids are going to be talking a little bit about that, but what also I saw was our kids, our high school kids got to play for the kids there that are, I think it was a K to 6 school, and they also did a fair bit of reading with them and work with them, so it was awesome. It worked out real well. And interesting, a small community of Craig coming together and finding blankets and finding food and finding, you know what, that's kind of what certainly life out on the prairies, I believe, is certainly all about. So kudos and thanks for reminding me about that. Anyone else? Okay. So we have a couple of delegations sitting in front of us, and I'm going to turn it over to you, Kath, to introduce.
Awesome. I would like to give the majority of the time to our two presenters. So Elizabeth Redekop is going to talk to you about the lovely Rainbow School of Grafton. I love the picture. That's awesome. All yours.
Good evening. My name is Elizabeth Redekop, and I'm the principal at Grafton School, which is located on Springfield Colony. We currently have 16 students at Grafton School, 6 early year students, 6 middle year students, and 4 senior year students. Since many of you have not been to our school building, I thought I'd give you a quick walk through our building, a glimpse into the spaces we use each day. So the two top pictures there are middle years room and our early years room, where I spend most of my time. And on the bottom, you'll see our high school room, which is used primarily for online learning, as well as the gymnasium, which our students enjoy a lot. This year, we decided to focus on improving writing skills. Our school goal reads as follows. All students at Grafton School will improve their writing skills in the 2022 to 2023 school year. On this slide, you will see our early years class all sitting together working in their Writer's Workshop notebooks. While each student in this class receives regular small group guided reading instruction, where they do word work and structured writing activities, the Creative Writer's Workshop time is by far their favorite class activity. All students in our middle years class have also been taking part in regular guided reading and guided writing instruction. Over the course of the past 2 years, we have purchased a significant amount of literacy footprints materials, which are currently being used several times a week in both our early years and middle years classrooms. This slide shows some of the materials that we use in our class to support students in improving their writing. The linking words and pep-up words have been used during instructional times, but tend to be used mostly during the revision process to improve students' writing before doing their final copies. In the top left-hand corner, you'll see a glimpse of one of the personalized spelling dictionaries that all of our K-8 students have at their desk to assist them in growing their repertoire of known words. This year, I've been fortunate to attend several professional development sessions on the topic of literacy. In October, I attended a session at SAGE called Harnessing the Power of Writing to Develop Literate Minds. This workshop focused on how to incorporate interactive writing into the classroom. Just recently, I had the privilege of attending a PD session that our literacy program leaders, Joanna and Natalie, organized on April 17th about how best to implement Jan Richardson's approach to guided reading and writing. This framework matches very well with the literacy footprints materials that we have already been using. In addition, I wanted to note that we have benefited from regular visits by Susan Bywater, who is the speech and language pathologist who's assigned to support our school. Our main assessment tool for tracking students' progress in writing this year was the Sunrise School Division's writing progressions. The early years progression has 4 stages labeled as upper awareness, early emergent, upper emergent, and early fluency. The middle years progression does not have headings for the 4 stages, so on the data on the next slide, I simply note them as stage 1, 2, 3, and 4. This slide shows the difference between where our students were at the start of the school year in September to where they are now, or at the end of term 2, so in March, when report cards were written. While the graph on the left side shows exactly how many students we had in each stage on the progressions in September compared to March, the graph on the right-hand side notes the overall progress that we have seen. In the circle graph, you will see that exactly half of our students moved up 1 stage, while a quarter of our students moved along 2 stages, while the final quarter of our students were still working on the same writing stage as they were at the start of the year. It is important to note that even though some students did not progress to a new stage on the continuum, all students have shown at least some progress in their writing since the start of the year. Next year, we will continue to track students on the writing continuums and support them in developing into more confident writers through both direct instruction as well as through providing opportunities for creative writing. We have not yet made a decision what our official school goal will be for next year. This will be the focus of our conversations on May 8th at our next professional development day. In closing, I just wanted to show you a few pictures that highlight some of the fun things we've done this year. First of all, a school concert with Al Simmons, which we had a lot of the parents and community members join us for. You don't see them in the picture, but it was really just a whole community event, which everyone enjoyed so much. Secondly, every month we've been doing baking projects for the kids that have birthdays that month, and that has been a huge highlight as well. This year we were able to do an in-person Christmas concert with costumes and the stage and the works, and that was a big success. We also did school skating every Friday that the weather was nice enough. We were out on the ice with the kids. I really love to read month. We had a lot of community members come in this year, as well as like people from the colony as well as outside the colony to come read for us, so we really enjoyed all the visitors. And finally, I just included a couple photos of some of the fun hands-on science projects we've done this year. Finally, I want to say thank you to the board. I just want to say thank you to all of you for your support. We've appreciated the in-person visits from Lorraine, and as well as all the behind-the-scenes work that you all do to support our school.
Thanks very much. Turn that off. Elizabeth, thanks very much. I'm going to open up. Are there any questions for Elizabeth? Trustee Rowan.
First of all, I wanted to say those are great pictures. It's lovely to see all of the things that you're doing with the students. I noticed that you said you have 4 senior year students. I was just curious how many of those are graduating this year.
Yes, so we have one graduate this year.
Anyone else? Okay, so Elizabeth, I have a question for you. So, in what you're doing with the writing progressions, in your opinion, is it working? And are you happy with it?
Yeah, I'd say, so the literacy footprints materials have really been working really well for us. I'm finding that it's giving our earlier students a really solid foundation. It's really incredible to see the students that started with that program last year and have continued this year. They're like at grade level or beyond. They're really have a really great foundation. For the middle year students, we only started last year, and they had more gaps from earlier, so it's been a little bit harder to catch them up. But what I find about the resources we're using is they're very structured, and the pre-writing activities, we're making our charts before we write. There's a lot of guidance in helping them think about what to put into the writing before they actually get to writing, and that's been really a really valuable piece, and we're seeing better writing coming out of that.
Thank you. Anyone else? So I've given all principals the opportunity. Now you're in front of our trustees. So budget has come and gone, but we always want to go ahead and consider. So what's something that is something that you really need at your school, or what is something that, as we continue to support you, what's something that we can, when we think about budget and we think about dollars and cents and supports, how do we support you if we're any differently, or how do we support you?
Super. So this year I let the board know that I really would appreciate having a base staffing of 2 people on site, and I'm going to say a big thank you for hearing that concern, because it really gives me a peace of mind to know that we have 2 people there. So that would be my only thing going forward, is that we have really low numbers, and we're really unique in that way that we're the only school in the division that doesn't have 2 full-time teachers. So for me, having at least another EA on support is really key for us.
Well, I can tell you that you can turn your attention to Trustee Boytson, who brought that forward from us, and you know what, I'm glad that we can make that work for you. I'm not going to ask Robert that question, so you're the only one that got the chance to answer that. No, thanks very much, Elizabeth, for the work that you've done. Did you want to add anything?
Yeah, I do. I think some of the stuff that you talked about in terms of where your students are at and how they're progressing, taking a look at those writing samples as I come by and look at them, they absolutely have adapted more to those structures and to that discipline of writing, as opposed to just the writing for fun of writing. That's been evident just from coming in and seeing that.
So there's lots of pressure now on Principal Pankratz to follow in your lead, so we'll see how he goes ahead and does that.
He was clear it's a competition before we started, so.
Elizabeth, you won already. We don't want to
Well, I guess we're done. We were even comparing the number of pages that we had prepared, and she beat me there too, by throwing in just some extra pictures, apparently. But welcome. Hello, everybody. Thanks for having us here tonight. And for those who I haven't met before, my name is Robert Pankratz, and I'm the principal at Richland School. And it's been a good year. It's been really nice to be able to get back into more of a swing of things, with parents being allowed into the school and being able to do an in-person Christmas concert and all of those things, because those are incredibly important events on the colony. And as we've been getting back into it, I wanted to start off my presentation just going back a little bit to update everybody on what our goal was last year and then how it has progressed into this year. So our school goal last year was that all grade 1 to 3 students would improve their reading to grade level by the end of the school year. So after the disruptions to learning that were caused by the pandemic, we identified literacy as our highest priority for our youngest and most vulnerable students. As EAL learners, we knew that they would be at a disadvantage for years to come across all subject areas unless we responded proactively to their literacy needs. we decided our school goal for the 2021-22 school year would be what I just mentioned. And our initial assessments confirmed that almost all of our early year students were all at least 1 year below their reading levels. So by the end of the first term, it was evident that progress was being made, but at a slower rate than we were used to seeing from our students. We concluded this was likely due to the ongoing disruptions to in-class learning that we experienced last year and the discontinuation of the book bag program that provided students with additional exposure and practice taking books home and reading with family members. And that was a question that Trustee Mickle asked about last year, so I wanted to mention that. By June of last school year, only 50% of our grade 1 to 3 students were reading at grade level. So we determined this was partly due to continued disruptions to learning resulting from an excessive number of snow days as well as many missed days of school due to illness. As we analyzed the data we collected throughout the year, we decided to continue working towards our goal from last year with an added focus on comprehension. Our new resources contained many comprehensive strategies that we realized would complement many of the other literacy activities we were looking forward to bringing back this year. Our baseline data at the beginning of this school year and our observations of how the Literacy Footprints program can support comprehension strategies led us to dig deeper into our data and examine the reading comprehension levels for our early years target group from last year. Thanks to a cost-sharing arrangement last year with Grafton School and Sunrise School Division, we were able to invest in our first Literacy Footprints resources for grade 1 and 3. And we immediately began appreciating the impact it was having on our struggling students, especially those with learning difficulties thanks to the decoding strategies, vocabulary building exercises, and sight word reviews. Another added bonus is how this program instills meaning from text by assisting our colony students in making connections between what they are reading and their personal lives. We chose to enhance our supply of Literacy Footprints resources this year by allocating EAL funds towards the purchase of the Grade 2 Literacy Footprints Resource Kit. The school division also helped by contributing to a portion of the cost. We also used additional funds from our EAL budget to purchase additional resources to complement the supplies in the resource kits. Our educational assistants began working daily with our students following the program guidelines, and our students responded very positively to the additional attention they were receiving. Our book bag program encourages families to read together. We recognize the importance of creating strong ties between home and school. A take-home book bag is a perfect way to create this foundation while encouraging early literacy in our students' homes. We are all very pleased to have been able to reintroduce this program in our community. Buddy Reading is a literacy program designed for students to work in pairs to improve their literacy development. Also called paired reading or partner reading, buddy reading has multiple benefits, but perhaps the biggest benefit is that it prevents discouragement. Learning to read is hard work. I think Jody Wilgosh mentioned that at one of our meetings, that it could be a challenge. And for some kids, it can be very disheartening, especially if English isn't their first language. Reading to each other can be very enjoyable and reassuring to the students as they are provided opportunities to assist each other and encourage each other while learning together. Much like at Grafton School, at Richland School, February is I Love to Read Month, and our students are all very involved in planning and participating in the events and activities taking place throughout the month. For us, it's all about instilling the joy of reading and celebrating the success of overcoming challenges and reaching goals. Comprehension is dependent on making connections. The concept wall provides stepping stones for the students to be able to understand what they are reading and to begin making those important connections. Understanding the rules of grammar, punctuation, and parts of a story removes some of the stumbling blocks for students learning English as an additional language. The word wall is an interactive tool for students to use and contains an array of words that can be used during writing and or reading. The word wall fosters phonemic awareness, displays connections throughout word families, serves as a support or reference for students, and creates meaningful, understandable, memorable experiences with new vocabulary words. The word wall is an interactive and collaborative tool, as it is student-created and student-centered. Guided reading is a small group instructional context in which a teacher supports each reader's development of systems of strategic actions for processing new texts at increasingly challenging levels of difficulty. During guided reading, students in a small group setting individually read a text that you have selected at their instructional reading level. You provide teaching across the lesson to support students in building the in-the-head networks of strategic actions for processing increasingly challenging texts. You notice how that text there became increasingly challenging? Through guided reading, students learn how to engage in every facet of the reading process and apply that literacy power to all instructional contexts. Sight word practice. When children can read sight words quickly, they are more fluent readers and can better comprehend a text. Students are encouraged to memorize by sight, so they instantly recognize them in a text without having to take the time to sound them out. That's especially helpful for the many sight words that don't follow normal phonetic rules and can't be sounded out. Might be important there to mention also that in the German language, the words that they pronounce are exactly the way they're written. So when they come into our school and learn English, it's somewhat confusing because not everything is exactly the way it's written. Level books. Students are actively involved in the process of improving their reading by choosing appropriate books to read at their level. Over the years, we have stocked our shelves with a wide variety of cross-curricular content books that introduce and reinforce the vocabulary they require to better comprehend the information they are exposed to in science, social studies, health, and other subject areas. So, at Richland School, we are very proud of all our students and their many accomplishments. Becoming a fluent and independent reader in middle years and then applying those skills in high school provide our students with the confidence and motivation necessary to be successful. With the ongoing commitment and dedication of Richland School staff, Ridgeland Colony members, and the support of the Sunrise School Division, we look forward to continuously improving opportunities for our students and seeing them succeed as lifelong learners. Any questions?
Thanks, Robert. Questions from anyone from Robert? Trustee Rowland.
Just wondering what your staff, how much staff you have at your colony.
Our school is small, so it might look like we have a lot of staff, but we have 2 full-time teachers, and we have 0.9 EA and a half-time EA. And we have a member of the colony who is a former graduate and has gone back to school to get her EA certification. And so she's sometimes substituting in the school, which is really nice to have a member of the colony working in the school with the kids. But she also volunteers a fair amount. But I think she's been sick a lot this year too, so that's an ongoing issue lately.
Robert, how many years have you been at Richland Colony?
Oh my goodness, Paul. You're really going to do that to us? You were there, man, you know. This is my 16th year at Richland School. And it's rather special, Paul, because every single student in the school, I remember them being born. I remember going over to their house, and I didn't hold them, but Erna did. And we would bring gifts, you know, and that kind of thing. And it's kind of neat, you know, for the kids to... they all say that I'm the best principal they've ever had.
Anyone else? So right in the beginning, Robert, you said that without the help with Elizabeth and Grafton School, you wouldn't be where you are now. I did catch that, okay? So the same question going to you. So are you happy with what you're doing? You know, you're showing some data and you're using data to inform your instruction. So the question that we're always doing, are you happy with, so the same question that I asked Elizabeth is that, are you happy with what you're doing and are you comfortable about it working the way you want it to do?
Absolutely. I think if we're speaking specifically of the Literacy Footprints program and the astronomical amount of money that we've dedicated to having that in our school, yeah, it's definitely worth it. I think I'm hearing nothing but positive things from my early years teacher, the EAs that work directly with the students. We also, actually as recently as today, we were discussing the possibility of having a couple of our grade 8 students who are going into grade 9 next year working towards a credit for being peer tutors and them getting involved with some of the work. It's a lot, it does increase the workload quite a bit. There's a lot of individual and hands-on work that has to be done. So we're hoping to maybe spread that out and have more people take ownership for that, but certainly will benefit from that as well.
So kidding aside, you know what, over the 16 years, yourself and Elizabeth, I don't know how many years that you've been at Grafton, but both of you have developed relationships with our community, with the community there. And certainly, you know, when you talk about the fact is that when kids are coming to the school, you've already met their parents and been over at their houses and have relationships with them. And you know what, that's awesome from the two of you, the work that you're doing at our colony schools. Because it's not easy to be the jack of all trades in some of the things that you're looking at going ahead and doing. And then certainly what we're requiring you is to take a look at data and, you know, make a plan and then basically demonstrate to us that what your plan is working, and you need to go ahead and show the data through it that it is. And so kudos to you. Kathy, did you want to add anything?
I think I want to echo two things. One, I've been coming out to do I Love to Read months and visits at your colony for a good number of years now, and you're completely correct in that the reading comprehension or the reading engagement that I see from kids when we're in classrooms has elevated. There were times when we would come at the beginning and it was very much a one-sided reading conversation, and that has shifted. That is a tangible piece that has shifted. And I would be remiss if I didn't share with you that there actually was evidence of a petition that Mr. Pankratz was the best principal indeed at Richland School, affixed to the door. So I have seen it. Thank you for the presentation, both of you.
When he starts the petition, though, that's the problem. I'll give you the same opportunity in front of 8 trustees now, Rob. Do you know what are some of the things that we need to consider about when we talk about budget for Richland Colony?
Well, certainly the ongoing costs associated with supplementing our program may not continue to be this, because it looks like we've been able to bring a lot of it in, and the Literacy Footprints program does extend into middle years, so we might be looking at that in the next year or two. But another area that has become of concern to the colony was music. They have expressed an interest in having the children taking a more varied number of different instruments and other instruction. So they are bringing someone in privately to work with the kids, and we've gone ahead and we've allocated some of our school budget to, and also the music program leader did help us out with supplied us with some ukuleles, and so we'll be looking at purchasing another keyboard and a few other instruments, so we might be looking at expanding that in the future. So music is on the radar at Ridgeland for the future.
Right, thank you. Anyone? Comments? Trustee Boytson?
Just one comment that, I mean, colony schools are so unique, and it takes the right kind of people to be there. And they always talk about, having the right person on the right bus and in the right seat. And the division really aced it when they brought you two into the colonies, and having visited both of the colonies and being part of the, watching the Christmas concerts and hearing what the community says about you. They speak about both of you very highly, and you're such a good fit. And just thank you for everything you do there.
I thought you were the music teacher, because whenever I go to the colony, you're singing all the time with the kids, so I don't understand it. All kidding aside, thank you very much for coming out tonight and presenting to us. And again, the million people that are watching online would have heard you all the truths that you have. And so we do expect you to stay with us till about 10 o'clock tonight, so thanks very much. No, you don't have to go ahead and stay, I'm just kidding. Yeah, thanks very much. Have a good one. Nello, come on board. Nello, we're going to come on up here. Kathy, Malia, come on up in front here.
In here.
so late in the year, it's hard for decisions to be made at a board level as to say how to look and how to spend those funds. So appropriate timing and definitely communication with the finance team, secretary, treasurer, superintendents to know that this money's on its way. The communication from the province at that time was, we're going to review, so they let us know that they're reviewing, but we didn't know when these numbers were coming in. Yeah.
First, you need a real partner at the table with you, not one that treats you like that. Bill 71, I'm sure you're all familiar with Bill 71, where it takes that pool of property tax dollars that you collect and is now dividing it between more and more and more homes and properties. So that pool, say you're collecting 20 million from that, stays the same. It's just divided amongst more people. Now, the property tax offset grant doesn't do what it's supposed to do. It's supposed to make up that difference. It doesn't. You face that every time. I know you face that, Jody. Every time. I've talked with Masbo. I know Paul really well at Masbo, the head of, the person that, the executive director, I think? Yeah. That's what we have to tackle, Paul. You need a real partner, one that understands this. Like I said, a funding formula that is fair and equitable and puts resources in the classroom. But you can't be surprised by it. So when we say that we're going to fund education every year to either provincial growth or a consumer price index, we're going to stick to that so that you know that that's coming. Not $700,000 after you've already budgeted. How disrespectful first. It's a waste of time. And like you say, how can we do this to trustees who are called trustees for a reason, right? You're the trustee of education in your area. You need to have the responsibility and a real partner at the table with you that understands that. I'm passionate about this. This is important because the work that you do is important, especially when you go to Springfield Collegiate and make that announcement and then, 2 weeks later, you're saying something else. That can't happen. Not in an organization that's important as a board of trustees. It just can't. So that's what we'll commit to, absolutely. You touched on a lot of stuff, but Bill 71 is probably one of the most problematic pieces out there that really compounds this problem that you've talked about, Paul, Don, Lorraine, Diane. The unpredictability of it. That has to be changed. I hope that answered your question.
Anyone else? Don?
I forget what bill was that when they were trying to take the autonomy from the local school board last year, I think it was 84 or something like that. But anyway, what happened this year is all my ratepayers that I talked to are willing to invest in education. However, we cannot put the property tax, the ratepayers in where I am, is their tax went down $200. They would be satisfied with the status quo. We wanted to, so they wouldn't have complained, they wouldn't have done anything. They would be happy with status quo, but they took away the autonomy and said, this is all you can charge. And I thought we used the word fought very well to try to get local choices and local voices. And it didn't happen because we were told, this is all you can do. Whereas the local people, at least around my area, because they are quite interested in education, they know that the only way their children are going to succeed is to get a good education. And they were deprived that privilege. Sure, people donate some, and some people are donating to the school to help the school out, but it's not the same as when it's on your taxes. So what I'm asking you is, what would you do, if you get in, what would you do to alleviate that problem?
So there's a lot to unpack there, Don. First, imagine growing communities like yours not being able to respond to the needs of your kids, even though your tax base is growing, right? That's antithetical. How can that happen? Well, Bill 71 does that. You were talking about Bill 64 earlier, Don. That would have taken a lot of power away, but let's not forget, Don, that all of these decisions that have happened since then very much mirror what was in that bill. It's tied your hands. And so now you're left with the impossible decisions, like every other school division in this province, of what to cut next. Which is, to me, in a growing province, in a growing communities like yours, how is that possible? Here's the other piece that we have to remember here, is that when you talk about what your community is saying, how impossible is it for you then to tell them that I can't do anything about it? Because you can't. So, what did Bill 64 want to do? Shut down school divisions and school boards. So, there it is in a nutshell, Don. There are challenges facing, absolutely. But what I see here is a group of people that are committed to their community. We have to respect that as a government, and we will. If I'm around, absolutely. We're going to do that. But we have to have predictability. These surprises that come through are impossible to deal with. Here's the other reality, though. 6 years of 0.5% increases have taken their toll on our system, have taken their toll out here in Sunrise. I can tell you that extra dollars that you got this year don't make up for the 6.5 years of underfunding that you've had to deal with and make impossible decisions on. That's the cumulative effect of 0.5 for 6.5 years. Because we know it should have been about 2.5 to 3% a year. So you've eliminated close to 20%. So what you get 7% this year? You're still at minus 13. That's the challenge. That's what predictable funding will do, right, Paul? It will provide you with that piece so that you can even look 2 to 3 years ahead. I know that people like your senior leadership team would love to have a chance to look at the writing progressions that as we go past year 1, year 2, year 3, and to have the funds and the resources to do that. I'm sure this school division here, this board would love to eliminate school fees. Talk about barriers for families. School fees, band fees, trip fees, all these fees that are added upon, lunch fees, all that stuff. And we talk about child and family poverty when we have all these other extra fees. That doesn't affect my family, but I'll tell you what other families it affects. They're making decisions based on school fees. Consequential decisions, like whether or not my kid is in the band program. These are things that we have to think about. This is going to be a challenge. I'm not going to lie to you. We have a big challenge coming up. If we have the privilege of governing, it's going to be a challenge. But we're going to work with you every step of the way to make sure that stuff gets done for kids and their communities. I hope that kind of...
So this past year we have no school fees and we have no school supplies. So however, we're not in that position to do that. So at budget time, we didn't do that again because we didn't have the proper resources to do it. And Trustee Nicol talked about the fact is that when we're allowed to work with the mill rate, people are fine with little increments. What they're not fine with is zeros, and then a whole jump. And a whole jump, then they're all over us, you know, as to where we are. And so, do you know what Don's correct in saying is that little increments or holding the line. If we were just even held the line as opposed to, so this year we reduced our mill rate, Don's not the only one that has constituents in saying is that, do you know what, for the $40 or $80 that you reduced reduced it, you know what, why not keep it and work it within the schools? Now that's not everybody, of course, but people are okay holding the line, or they're okay with small little bits. What they're not okay with is surprises. Because we surprised, Kath, when do you remember, a number of years ago, we surprised our school division, you might, with, when we had zeros, and so, do you know what, we didn't increase the, you know, we said, okay, so you know what, we're not going to increase the mill rate, we're not going to increase the mill rate, and then we had to increase the mill rate, and it hit hard, and they were not happy. And they've come back to us over and over again saying, little bits, if you have to increment, you know, increase things, do it a little bit at a time, we can live with that, but don't hit us with a 10%er.
I'll just respond to you. Absolutely, it has to be predictable, right? But people, our community members understand the value of education. Absolutely, I don't think you have to sell any of that. Because that part, like you say, people get the, you know, the $40 to $60 as long as they're a predictable pace. We're all in support of that. We're all in support of trustees doing their jobs. Absolutely, that has to happen. The predictability piece is also important, right? Because you look surprised by the number that you get. You can't be. There has to be some form of consistency in these funding announcements. And the other piece too, the funding formula is done. You know that, right? They just decided not to release it until after the election. That, I think, tells you something.
Trustee Bowen?
So my question is regarding the centralized bargaining. So after the arbitration award in the last 4 years, previous contract was renewed, let's say, and all the school divisions were hit with sort of unexpected costs based on that last cost of living allowance increase that was awarded. And at the time, the provincial government did provide funding to the divisions to help offset that unexpected large expense because of that final year and the adjustments. Currently, all divisions are trying to have a guesstimation or try to prepare for the next settlements that's coming, but it's outside of our control, and we're all trying our best to prepare for this on very limited funding. So what would you guys do to help divisions who have to deal with whatever the end result in our negotiation, the negotiation that's happening downtown has to live with that? What's your opinion or your approach to helping the funding and divisions accept what is agreed upon?
MSBA has to be tirelessly advocating for school boards and the cost pressures that school boards face. I'm in regular communication with Josh Watt. We talk all the time. I always say to Josh, you need to advocate for school boards and the cost pressures that they're going to face, especially with provincial bargaining. Now I'm going to get to the heart of your question, the equalization piece. The province has to be there as a real partner with you when this happens, because moving into provincial bargaining, it's going to be interesting. It's never been done in Manitoba. Although we have had it anyway, because most boards would then fall in place after the first ones went. But that was with the heavy involvement of MSBA and working with the bargaining units sitting across the table. That has to continue, Diane. That can't go away. And so not only do you have MSBA with you, but you also need the province understanding that there has to be a predictable equalization piece that's put in place for smaller school divisions. I think that's right.
With our tight budgets and inflationary pressures and cost of living, and we can see strikes going on all around, particularly in light of our tight budget money that we had received this year, likely probably next year if things continue the way they are. But every division could find themselves having to face a large settlement, and the province has said that there will be no additional funding coming to help. So I'm just wondering what your comment to that is.
Well, each division is supposed to carry a 4% surplus, aren't they? Right? One of my suggestions was, hang on, I'll just say something, Diane. One of my suggestions is that that's just good budgetary planning, but you can't do it when you don't have the funds. And so the province needs to realize that if they expect school boards to have 4% in the kitty, then let's make it possible for that to happen.
I'm sorry, what do you base that expectation on, that you believe provinces think we should carry a 4%? Should, or...
That's just good accounting practices to have that.
We currently do not have anything near that amount.
Of course, there are a number of school divisions, Diane, that don't have that amount because of what's been going on the past 7 years. You can't sugarcoat it. I'll tell you, I mean, maybe I'm speaking out of class here, but there are a couple school divisions that have been pretty silent on this. The reason being is that they have their surplus because they're doing quite well, thank you.
I think we have a trustee online that wants to ask a question. Trustee Dent?
Thank you, Paul. Hi, Mello. Thank you for coming in this evening. We appreciate you answering our questions, and sorry I wasn't able to be there in person. At this point in time, the province hasn't passed legislation to allow us to use battery-operated buses, and we already talked about kind of the size of our fleet. Being that reducing our carbon footprint is important to our constituents, and also being that we have one of the largest fleets out of the school divisions in Manitoba, and that we feel that this would be a long-term savings for the division, where do you fall on supporting the purchase of battery-operated buses, and how do you foresee the government supporting us to converting our current fleet of 93 buses from primarily diesel buses that we have right now? We have a couple of propane buses that we're kind of running as an experiment to battery-operated buses.
Well, thank you for that question. I think it's unquestionable that we have to have a climate plan for when we take up, well, if we have the privilege of governing. That includes the province having to take a lead role with school divisions and partnering them to ensure that we can move to battery-operated buses. We have to reduce our carbon footprint, and the province could do that simply by what Don was saying earlier, just the scale of it. It's so large in Manitoba because we have a large province. We have a lot of school buses that run. I think it would be really difficult to expect school divisions to absorb that entire cost, especially if the province is serious about reducing its carbon footprint.
I think Trustee Harris.
I enjoyed your introduction at the beginning that you were a River East principal. My father was Bob Harris, was principal of a couple of schools, Maple Leaf and Element in Emerson, and a senior admin person there for his entire career. My question has to do with, and it's been alluded to earlier, our division is growing, and we're getting huts put in. I am not a fan of huts. I wish there was a quick way that we could get additions or a new school done and not have to wait years for that whole decision process to happen.
That's a good question, Robin. You know, I'll be honest with you, that happened too with the previous NDP government's. Huts were all over the place. Portables were all over the place. We have to find a better way of ensuring that we get buildings built in, again, a predictable way. I don't know how we do that. This current government wants to move to a P3 model, where they're using the private sector, but there are all kinds of problems with going with P3s. Not the least of which is that you get these large out-of-province contractors coming in and they're not using local subtrades. That's one of the biggest issues with P3s, but I'm diverting from yours. You know, I wish I can give you an answer. I'd love to be able to say to you that we're going to build new schools. I can't. But we certainly want to be able to partner with you so that when you identify an area, like you say, that's growing, that we're serious about planning for its needs. And it's more than just putting up, because I taught in those huts back at Arthur Day Middle School. They're not fun. It's not a great learning environment. So, yeah, I wish I had an answer. I really don't, though.
Anyone else? Russ online? Dustin, anyone else? Questions?
I think I'm good. Thank you again, Mello, for coming.
No, I think that those are our questions with you, or are certainly some of our concerns. We'll give you the last little bit to end up with us if you like.
Just thank you for the opportunity to come out. As you can probably tell, we've met with a lot of school divisions, a lot of school boards, a lot of people like you that are concerned about their kids, their families, and their communities. These are important decisions that you're making. We want you to have a real partner in the provincial government that's with you doing this stuff, because it's important. And like I said, I always talk to people about it being an investment. It's not a cost. We know how important this is. Let's get to work together so that we can make something that can truly deal with the challenges that are in front of us. Not the least of which, and which you face every day. I call it the scourge of child and family poverty. We need to do better. And I look forward to our continued dialogue. It's been a pleasure, and thanks again.
Yeah, sorry, this is Malaya. I just do have one question. I sit in the legislature and I get to see all Nello and Wayne go at it. I do want to know what your access is like to the department and to the minister. Are you able to get a meeting when you need one? Are you able to explain what's going on in your division and advocate for your students in your schools?
I think it's been pretty fair. When I was pretty excited, I called up Wayne, and now again, Wayne is also our, from our area. So I called him up, and he did respond, and we did get to see them. We've been very happy with the help that we've gotten from Dana Rudy and, the deputy ministers, those kind of things, when we've had to call. So I think that support has been good. And whether Wayne is good to us because, we're in his catchment or not, but he has, in fairness, he has been good. And again, we also know they just can't drop somebody at the hat to do things, and the minister can't do it, but around some of the big concerns that we've had, I think that it's been positive. Is that fair? Yeah. So it has been good for us. So thank you for coming out and sharing, and certainly good luck as we approach. Kathy's been great. Just to let you know. Yeah, go ahead, Kath.
So I think, as all of you know, I've introduced myself, and my background isn't politics. My background is nursing. And when I listen to Nello speak, the way he's talking about that partnership between the province and the school boards, that's really how I approach my career. My whole nursing career is a partnership with my patients, my colleagues. And that was the big reason that I identified these meetings as really good information for me to understand the schools in our areas. It's the same reason that I'm attending municipal council meetings, right? Because you folks around the table here, the municipal councillors in the various areas, really understand the communities in a way that is different from, say, the average individual that lives in these communities. And so I have really appreciated the time and how welcoming you've been, and the patience when I have questions and additional questions. But I can say, it's these two folks here and the rest of the members of caucus and the other candidates, it's the value system behind it is we want to make sure that the province has what we need, the education system, the healthcare system, the systems across the board, and making sure that the folks at the local level are true partners in it, not surprises along the way. So thank you for the time today.
Thanks to the three of you. Your question that you asked is a great question. Do I think that we want to talk to the minister every day? No, that's not. But when it's been something that's pretty critical to us, yeah, we're going to reach out. And again, I think that we'll also reach out to the minister, deputy ministers, and again, they have been good. So I think that we need to respect people's time just like everyone else. But when I'm calling, and it's because, what are we doing? And it was good. So we did it on Zoom, and that's the kind of stuff that we would look for in the future, just continuing with. So thank you. Thanks very much for coming out. We're going to take a quick break just so that we can just very quickly introduce ourselves individually to you again, and thanks for coming. We appreciate it.
Are we still having the break, or did I lose the signal?
Yes, Russ, we're just
Think
going
we're
to
still having the
be
break.
starting again.
Okay.
Okay, so we're going to continue on here. We've got minutes from April the 18th. So be it resolved that the board adopt our April 18th minutes. I need a mover and a seconder. Moved by trustee Rowland, seconded by trustee Rowan. Any comments to the minutes? Hearing none, we'll vote. Passed 8-0, thank you. Minutes, superintendent's report. Kath, floor is yours.
Yes,
so I wanted to draw some attention to a couple of pieces in the superintendent's report. You would have heard some things elsewhere, but one of the things that I wanted to draw our attention to is that we do have our Sunrise Learning Framework, and one of those pieces when we talk about expectations that come from different places. The division has expectations of schools. The province also has some expectations in their learning framework, in their Mamatowisawan document that I included last time. And this link here takes you to their action plan. So those are things like Principal Learning Networks. Those are things like the Student Advisory Council. And all of those things that are in the current government's action plan can be found here at this link. And it's an important document that kind of lays out in a 3-year map what it is that the government is saying thou shalt make sure that you're ready to do, or that's coming down. I did want to remind folks that we have May 15th as a Schools of Choice application date. So if there are families that are looking to apply at a school that isn't their catchment school, May 15th really is an important date. We look at that and we have to look at staffing and programming and a whole host of things to see whether or not we can accept Schools of Choice applications from people. So it is a pretty important calendar marker date so that we can make those decisions and get back to families. Another important date, this seems to be all about dates today. June 8th is our first in-person long service and retirement reception happening here in Beausejour at the Broken Head River Community Hall. So we're excited to be gathering in person, so mark your calendars for a June 8th event. You would have heard a little bit about Craig School. I included a picture and just wanted to make sure that we did the shout out to folks who hosted our Springfield Collegiate Band and did a stellar and amazing job of looking after our folks out there in Saskatchewan. A fun opportunity, another set of dates, is the Youth Parliament coming. So we will have a meeting here on May 16th. We are finalizing the bills right now, so I'm just going to say to trustees, have a look in your email. When the bills are finalized, I will send them out to you so you can look at the things that kids are arguing about. If you are one of our million people listening, or you're watching later, you can reach out to any of the schools or here at the division office and we can get you a copy of the bills. A copy of the bills or the debates that they're having are also available on that day as you walk in. You can get a copy of the bills and you can follow along as to what they might or might not be debating on any given day. École Beausejour Early Years is hosting their spring tea again for, again, another first time in person in a long time. It is on Thursday, May 11th, next week between 2 and 4. There is a special service between 1 and 2 for the seniors in our community. And I think this has been around, my goodness, for many, 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 many decades. And it is a rite of passage for every grade 4 student to serve tea. And I believe there are grade 4 students in this room who have served tea, self-included. So it is a pretty long-standing event. If you can get out and get a chance to, they've got some great silent auction and a bake sale on the go. I think they had a plant sale the last couple of years as well, so it has expanded and grown a little bit. We've also undertaken our Developing Leaders sessions, and we've done 2, and we have our 3rd one tomorrow evening, and it is a room full of folks in our division who are just keen to learn a little bit more about leadership and what that entails and what that involves, and we've got a great group of people. We meet tomorrow the 3rd and then again on the 17th, and so if there is anybody out there listening who still would like to attend, they can get their name in for the 17th if they'd like. Link, and it's going to be the school year is over, so just pay attention to those dates and activities. There's a lot action-packed stuff jammed in between now and June.
Thanks, Kath. Anything for Kath? Trustee Boytson?
Just curious if, once you get the numbers for the schools of choice, if, just curious to know if any of them will be for the Ukrainian immersion program, if they have to access it through schools of choice. And because I know I've talked about it before, about, you know, busing has been an issue for them. So just curious to know if there are any of those students would fall into that category.
Great, maybe we'll add that to that draft reporting and saying, hey, that's a piece that we want to maybe bring at that point in time. We do make a commitment that we will have a decision, good, bad, or ugly, by June 30th. So if we're not sure we have space, it might be the bad or ugly, but we want to make sure that all families know what's going on by June 30th.
Any other questions for Kath? Okay, thanks, Kath. 6.2 is our draft reporting schedule. You have that for information. We're not going to go over it, but it's certainly that. And again, if we want to add different things to it, reminder, look at that schedule, and if you want different information, that's when we're getting that information in by the date. 7.1 is the Secretary Treasurer's report. Jody.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring the board up to speed on what's going on in the departments. The report's there for if everybody wants to take a look, but I wanted to highlight a few things. The latest update in our maintenance department, Red Lake Construction. I just was given word, the official word, that Red Lake Construction was awarded for the Oak Bank Elementary School roof replacement. So that's the project. The tender closed a while back, and now the province awarded it. So the idea is construction will start during the summer months. And as long as weather is cooperating, we should see this done before school starts. I also had a big discussion last week, Friday, with Canotech. That's the contractor for our Edward Schreier School project. We asked them for a completed timeline. So at this point in time, what was proposed to us that September 15th will be the completed ground, exterior, interior, all work by September 15th. We advise them school starts September 6th. We will have students arriving. We'll have staff arriving about 2 weeks before the start of school. So ideally, we want them to be done at the end of August. So we've asked them to revise their timeline. The biggest thing we've asked them to do is look at the exterior work, and if they could add a couple contractors or additional contractors to the exterior work, because that's the longest period of time. So that I'll update the board at next meeting to see where the schedule is and if they were able to accommodate our request. But the conversation was good. We did discuss what important dates take place at that school, at Edward Schreier School. We wanted to make sure that they're aware. We don't want student learning to be impacted. We also want to be aware of the impact of the staff as this ongoing construction. So we gave them a couple dates that students and staff are out of the school, some PD days where they may not be. We also asked them to provide us more information as to where their contractors will be. So we'll continue those conversations leading into May, but this Thursday they'll start working on the exterior work. As long as the weather is suitable, they'll have contractors out there.
Thanks, Jody. Any questions for Jody? Trustee Rowland?
Is there any outstanding subcontractors that have unpaid bills?
That's a great question. We did have a subcontractor reach out to us questioning when they will get paid through Canotech. We did follow up with Canotech, and they did correct and pay that subcontractor to them. Yeah.
Thank you. Anything else? Go ahead, Trustee Boyton.
Just whether or not the tentative date for to meet with the Bozers of town, if that's been settled or not, or if it's still tentative for June the 13th, I believe.
Good question. We were waiting to hear back from their CAO. She hasn't returned back, but we'll follow up for sure and send those meeting invites once we confirmed it.
Anyone else? Okay. So let's move on to board business. We have a strat plan here. Kathy, you've got two real good documents. I just want to talk about one of the documents before you go, and just to remind the public that the strat plan was developed with input. So after, you know, you've got down here, Kathy, that we reviewed a parent survey, we reviewed a staff survey from 2021, and the board then was also asked to go out to constituents and find out from constituents certainly what they were going ahead and saying. So that we did get that information, and you put it down here very well, Kath, but I just wanted to make sure that people knew as we were developing a strat plan, we did go out and ask for input from people. And again, I think that we've talked about it as a living document, or what's the word that we used? A living document. So, pardon me? A working document, thank you. We used it as a working document as for us to go ahead and continue listening to people to where things are. So that's good. So, sorry, Kath, I just wanted to make sure that that information was out, but I'm going to turn it over to you. Yeah. So, really, the strat plan that we have is here. Do you know what? If you can go to the first page, Kath. Do you know what, we've talked about that we wanted to make sure that we had 3 domains, and the domains certainly around educational, social, emotional, and relational. I've got that word out. So certainly all those things are real important to us. We've talked about this and been talking about those domains for the last little while, and that's kind of where we've head off. We believe that as a board, we're going to go ahead and talk about the big picture as to where we are. Schools and Kathy, you're going to go ahead and focus down about what individual schools are going to be going ahead and looking at. But certainly, as we talked about educational, the 2 key areas, literacy and numeracy. We heard today from schools giving us that kind of information. We also talked about areas in socially emotional. We've heard over and over again about mental health and what we need to be going ahead and doing, and in well-being. It's listed certainly in here. And then relational certainly talks about community and culture, how we as a board need to reach out and look at the community, but also about how our schools need to be going ahead and doing that. Did I miss anything, Kath, or does anybody else want to join in on that? Kathy did a great job certainly about helping us with this. Anybody else want to jump in here on that? So it is available certainly, or will be available online as to where we go. But we do have a motion here for us, and so I will put the motion on the floor, and then it'll be open up to anyone else to talk. So be it resolved that the board approve the 2023 to 2026 strategic plan. I need a move and a seconder. Moved by Trustee Boyton, seconded by Trustee Harris. Any comments to it? Round table? Trustee Nicol?
I would like to make an amendment to the motion, is that I get to the last line that was underneath the motion. Is that part of the motion or not? Okay, look at the motion.
I think the motion says, be it resolved that the board approve the 2023-2026 strat plan.
That bottom line.
Oh, I'm looking at the agenda, Don. I'm not looking at, I'm not sure what you're talking about, sorry.
Yeah. Okay, what Kathy had put down on the strategic plan, it said a draft motion. There's a draft motion, what you had, but underneath there it kept on going, right there. I would like to have that part of the motion.
So what you're looking for is so I'm just understanding, you want it to be it resolved that the board approve the 23-26 strat plan, and once approved and implemented, regular reports in alignment with strategic plan will be incorporated into regular board meeting report schedule. That's what you're looking for?
That's what I'm looking for, yes.
As of right now, we have, I think Trustee Boyton is that you made the motion, and then there's Trustee Harris, so you would have to agree to it. So Trustee Boyton is okay with it, Trustee Harris is okay with it? You good with that? Okay, so that will then the friendly amendment or whatever the amendment to the motion is there, or do we have to vote on that? There'll be a friendly amendment to it that will add that together. Thank you. Any other questions to this? Can you put it back up there again? So the motion is, be it resolved that the board approve the 23-26 strat plan, and once approved and implemented, regular board reports in alignment with the strategic plan will be incorporated into the regular board meetings report schedule. So moved by Boyton, seconded by Harris. We can vote on this electronically? Okay, but we can go ahead and vote on it. Any questions from anybody? Okay, hearing none, we'll vote. So it passed 8-0. Thank you for that. So we have monthly enrollment information.
going to come back to.
Okay, so we have monthly enrollment information 8.2, and there's information that's out there. Okay, we just, technical difficulties and microphones. So the monthly enrollment information is out there. Any questions to it? Thank you for that. Balanced School Day report. Kathy?
There are way too many buttons to be pushing here in terms of what I'm showing and how I'm talking. Sheesh. Okay, here we go. Sorry. That would be spelled sheesh. Balanced School Day. So this will be something new for folks, and I just wanted to do a quick little go through around what the Balanced School Day is. You have that report here. It is essentially breaking the school day into 3 learning chunks and 2 longer periods instead of the traditional learning period, short break, learning period, long lunch, learning period, short break, learning period. It's 3 chunks with 2 longer breaks in there. All of our early years schools, so our K-5 and K-6 schools have been doing this. We have no renewals that need to happen. So I've given you the date they started. I've given you the date that they would need to put a renewal request in, because the province, the Department of Education, needs to approve any schools on the Balanced School Day. Oakbank Elementary has indicated a desire to begin collecting data in 23-24 for the possible implementation in September 24. It's a lengthy process because it involves surveying all staff, it involves gathering student data, and it involves gathering data from parents in terms of making that shift. So it's not something that Oakbank Elementary can go into lightly, and Shanna is there in her first year, so just wanting to make sure that she's doing some gathering and collecting and deciding whether that's something that they want to embark on. But just wanted to give everybody a sense of where we're at as a division with the Balanced School Day. I'll try pressing buttons.
Thanks, Kathy, for that report and following up a little bit about what if you want to go into a Balanced School Day, what it is and what the process is. Thanks, Kath. Trustee Rowland.
Where does the research and data that says that this is an improved model that is not adopted province-wide?
So the research lies in literacy and numeracy blocks. So in terms of being able to have a concentrated block for literacy and numeracy, so essentially what happens is by having the 3 longer periods, you can incorporate that balanced literacy program or the balanced numeracy program, and the research lives behind longer periods of uninterrupted time in those areas.
Keep going, Diane.
Do you have like our own school data to show us how this has improved? Like especially particularly, I guess, Dougald School is a more recent one. Is there data that shows that this has actually impacted the kids at those schools and they're having better outcomes in literacy and that you could provide or I could find?
Yeah, so some of the renewal process would be exactly that. So the renewal process would ask directly of parents and of students and of staff, what do they see and do they want to continue and all those kinds of things. It's kind of tough to do that because if you ask a kindergarten student who's known nothing but the Balanced School Day, you kind of don't have a benchmark. So we do go with those larger studies of where the research is. I guess the second piece is nutritional breaks and having sort of movement breaks and nutrition in the bigger chunks was a piece of the research. But the data we have in-house would be that submission that every year a school needs to reapply. They would have to ask their population for that kind of evidence of what are they seeing and how do they feel. And we've had overwhelming support from parents and staff and students about how much they love the Balanced School Day. Our schools would never go back.
Only comment I hear about Balanced School Day is kids eat all their food in the first one and then they're hungry in the second. So
there is a multi-year training. There is the whole notion of packing 2 bigger lunches and sort of 2 bigger food pieces. That is a multi-year. You got to get used to that. We have some staff who've adjusted and find that to be a better way to go as well. But you're right, that's an adjustment after the first year.
You know how interesting, very interesting, Diane, that is an adjustment. Certainly that's there. But wow, that's the only thing that people are talking about is now they need 2 lunches. It kind of takes me thinking of movies when we talk about having to bring our second lunch, as to where we are. But do you know what? There is some real good data that, and I've followed this for a little while about doing this. The reporting when schools want to re-app for it, and the information coming back is good. Trustee Rowan.
Before I ask my question, I will just say that for my own children, I know how hangry they can get. So having the 2 nutrition breaks is probably a blessing for their teachers. I'm just curious as to how frequently renewals have to happen.
So after the first year, it is a renewal right after the first year, and then the government will do either a 2-year or a 5-year based on the feedback that they get. So year 1, you have to reapply in year 2, and then they will make that 2-year, 5-year adjustment after that.
And if the school population, that includes the parents, teachers, whatever, are all in favor, I assume there's no reason that the government, like that the province would deny it?
We are nowhere near the only school in the province who's using the balanced school day, and in fact that there's a process like this, there are tons that are using it across the province. I think that they're just really very interested in making sure that people are implementing it in the right way and that they have solicited that feedback on how it's going. Yeah. We've never been denied it, if that helps.
It is a really good process about community engagement, right? So now the school has to engage with the community about the balanced school day. And so lots of information sharing back and forth. That's a good process. Trustee Nicol?
This balanced school day is very useful for those students that are on the bus an hour, which means that they get up probably by 7 o'clock and have breakfast, and they don't eat lunch until 12 again. That is a long time for young kids to be without nutrition. So that's one of the benefits of balanced school days that they have. They're an additional break, I think that's what they call, they don't call it lunch now, an additional break quite a bit earlier. And for young kids, it's not so much necessary for maybe the grade 6s, but especially the younger kids, it's really important for them.
Any others? Okay, thanks for that. Thanks, Kath, for that explanation. That was really good. Jody, land planning?
Okay, microphone's on, screen's on, we're good to go. So some exciting information. I spent some time reviewing the Land Planning Act. I think it's over 200 pages. It was wonderful reading, and I hope everybody got a chance to read it as well. It's a good read. But what I did for you folks is did a quick little synopsis of what's applicable. We have some meetings coming up with the RM of Springfield, RM of Broken Head, and the town of Beausejour. And in those discussions, we want to talk about the land use or dedications of public reserve and public money to be flowing to us as a school division because of the future growth of subdivisions taking place. So at the end of the report, I highlighted the sections of the Act that actually are applicable to us. And as a result, just to summarize, should land be subdivided, the school division could either obtain the land or receive money in place of school lands as per section 135 and 136 of the Act. The money received would go into a reserve called Land Acquisition for Future School Site Reserve. We have that reserve established since 2016. And as per section 141, the money and interest can be used for capital expenditures such as land and school buses, because keeping in mind that as we grow, we will need potentially more school buses to bring students to us, to our schools, or even an expansion of our school or another school location. So that's where those funds would be used for. And should the division ever acquire land, but maybe choose to sell it in the future, we have that ability as well. So when we receive notification from the province or some of the municipalities that they're subdividing, one of the letters that goes out is we remind them to please keep in mind to allow us to collect fees to pay for capital expenditures like land for a future school site. We also ask them to keep in mind of areas where we may need a bus to stop or sidewalks to go in to allow our students to have a safe walking space or safe places to walk to either get to a bus access or to walk to the school. So the Planning Act allows us to have that flexibility to demand that from our subdivisions. Any questions? Feel free.
Anything for Jody? And thanks for putting this together, Jody. It does outline some of the good stuff that we need to pay attention to. Anything? Trustee Boyton?
It allows us to request it, but it doesn't, it's not demanding on them, right? Like, they don't have to do it?
I think that's a great question because the Act does say that we should be able to get that. But the municipalities are not applying that through their planning departments or planning. Some of them are part of planning development groups, and that doesn't go through. And it doesn't go through them to make sure that's happening. It's not part of the subdivision request. So when it's kind of like Beausejour or Broken Head, they have a planning act or planning corp. Can't remember what their title is, but the municipality could request it. But at the end of the day, if it's not in the application or the subdivision requirements, it won't make it to us, the dollars or the portion of land that we might require.
Is it worthwhile for us to get an legal opinion on that? I'm just, to follow up with yours, is it something that is required or not required? Go ahead.
Well, I'm just wondering if once we figure that all out, if it's not required and they don't have to do it, maybe at some point we have to put through a resolution and bring it forward at our next Manitoba School Boards Association meeting regarding, putting some stronger words into this and making it mandatory that school divisions get a portion of money or land or whatever it needs.
Yeah, if you read that, it is not required. About 15 years ago when they sat on when they tried to revise this Land Planning Act, and it was a big discussion whether they were going to make it a requirement or not, because the word says may, but what at that time when we were talking about, we were really, the committee that was looking at the act was really suggesting that all municipalities not necessarily change it legally, but actually give them 10%.
But with this, Trustee Rowan, following up with this? So Don, this is the exact issue that we're in though with the fence at Dugald as to where we are. Had we had the resources, the fence would go up like that. But now we don't have the resources really for the fence because there wasn't that planning, there wasn't money set aside. And right now it's kind of, why should we put up the fence when we're going to eventually put up the fence one way or another, I guess, because we have safety for our kids. But the issue is, had we had the resources, it would be a done deal, correct? So, if the opinion is that they don't have to do it, I think part of it is us, whether it's we tell public or we go to whatever. If we're not getting it, then you know what? There's some things that might be not going on within school divisions. I think that's the first conversation that we certainly go ahead and have with the municipalities. And nobody wants to do that, but at the end of the day, if the municipalities are deciding not to go ahead and do that, we need to let people know about that.
Yeah, because I agree with you. It doesn't cost the municipality any money because it's a developer that gives you the money. So, and they're going to bring it. Sure, it's going to make the development a little bit more expensive for these people to buy, but it may make another $50 more. But if you're buying a $300,000 house, what's $50 or $100 more? So it's not. But if it's $100 for 80 houses for us, that's $8,000. So that's a big thing that you can put fences up. So. I agree that we should try to encourage all municipalities to give the 10% and make it as a requirement, not may.
So again, if we don't need a legal opinion on it because it's not required, then let's not go ahead and do that. But I think that this is exactly why we want to meet with the municipalities to have this kind of a conversation with them. So thanks. Diane?
What I was wondering, and possibly Jody could look into, is there was a new school opened up last year in Pembina Trails, and I'm wondering currently, how many municipalities or school divisions are in the same predicament as us, where the municipalities are not collecting this additional 10% because it's not required. And when the new school was opened, what was the expectation of the division providing funds to that new school? I know the province has said they're going to be building 26 new schools somewhere in the province in the next while. And what is the expectation of a division to actually provide that funding? And have they gone to these divisions, like in last year when they opened up Pembina Trail School, and said, where's your 10%, we're looking for it now, here comes our new school, pay up? And because it probably likely was not there, and that's an area of very recent development and booming and that, so if anybody should have a nice little reserve set aside, that would be that area. But if they weren't able to provide any funding for that because it wasn't collected, is there any repercussion, like what does the province just go ahead and do? Build a school anyways and the division is like, sorry, so sorry, thanks, whatever? Like, I'd just like to know what's the historic precedence on that.
I'll try to. I think when the province decides to build a school, they cover the cost of building the school, and then they have certain things that are covered by that. The school division doesn't turn over the 10% that we would have gotten from the municipality. It sits in a reserve for us to use for fencing, for landscaping, for a park, for sidewalking, like all those kinds of things. But we are not obligated. If the province says we're going to put a school here, they look after that cost, and they're not saying, hey, where's your amount towards this?
Why would we ever take land then? Like, why would we ever want to take land? I mean, I guess to sell it again and, you know.
So I think some of that is for access to school property, is for portables, is for growth, and all of those kinds of things. So in a community where we are growing and we don't want to be landlocked, or a community where we need to have the developer consider that a new school is on the horizon, we need a spot to put it, that's why we would be asking the developer for that. Oftentimes we'll ask a developer for the funds for something because we're entitled to, and they'll take a look at growth and go, yeah, no. And that, I think, is exactly what Don was talking about. We can ask, but we don't get to demand. And that landmark planning report kind of talks about growth and those kinds of things to try to strengthen our case around why would we need that 10% of money, because we're going to be doing upkeep on some of those things. But the province doesn't say to us, hey, where's your share?
And your question might be a good one for, go to MSBA and find out from other school divisions what other school divisions are doing and getting, or those kind of things. Go in particular to the city and find out from the city as to what it is. It's also, Jody can talk to her other MASBO counterparts and kind of find out that kind of information, and we can try to bring some stuff back. Go ahead, Kath.
I think we do need to watch a little bit, though, if we're going to use Pembina Trails as an example, because they wouldn't be under the Municipal Planning Act. They would be in Metro and City of Winnipeg things. So let's make sure that we find out that difference between Metro and municipalities.
I got a quick question here from out east.
Go ahead, Dustin.
Hey, thanks. So we visited Oakbank Elementary, and so we saw what some of their planning was, which was to include additional sidewalk and additional parking. My question then would be, being that we hadn't collected this 10%, and I first of all, I don't know for how long we haven't collected that 10%. That might have been shared, several months ago, but I don't recall. But then, I guess my second part to that question then would be, does that give us then leverage to have more of an expectation? I was kind of thinking when we were visiting there, it was more of a request to see if the RM could assist us. But now, can we hold them a little bit more accountable to an existing school that is looking to make these adjustments to accommodate the, community members because of the growth of the school, and then while not collecting that 10%, as opposed to the division absorbing that cost? Does that make sense?
So I think what I hear you say, Dustin, is that if there's more growth in Oakbank, the schools that people would be attending right now need attention. So our ask of the 10% for any new growth coming now is for these schools, not any potential new ones. Is that fair?
I think that's partly fair, but then also too, being that Oakbank has grown so much, at what point did we stop collecting that 10%? I'd be curious, so was that before Crystal Lakes? Was that before Aspen Lakes? I mean, that's a lot of property.
So I think we asked for the 10% all the way along. We don't control whether we get it.
Okay.
So the municipality
I'm hearing that, but at what point were we asking, I guess, for it, and then at what point were we being told no?
And that would be some historical stuff that we could probably dig into for sure. But retro, like we can't go back and say you didn't pay us for these years and you now owe us.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying that we need to collect that money, but what I'm saying is that can we use that as leverage to say, listen, we hadn't collected that money, but now we're in a situation such as Oakbank Elementary requiring more sidewalking, requiring more parking. We don't have the reserves to pay for this. We hadn't gotten any of this from you. You know, can you put this on your agenda for, or your prioritization to have done, because the safety of our students are at hand here.
Thanks, Dustin. Don?
We've always asked for 10% since 2006, since I've been here. We've always asked 10%. What happens because councils change, municipal councils change every 4 years. Sometimes Springfield Council gave the money, sometimes you got a new council, they didn't give the money because it's voluntary. So that's why we have to meet with the council and try to encourage them to give us the money. And we'll probably have to do 4 years later when the council changes again, because it's not compulsory. But we've always asked for the money. Not only for Springfield, but when it happens in Lac Du Bonnet, if it happens in Whitemouth, we ask for the money. If it's within more than 4 lots, we always ask for the money. And again, some of those councils have given the money, some of them haven't.
All right, thanks, Jody. Certainly where it is, I think you've got some information that we're looking for. And yeah, pretty important as we move forward with those councils when we're meeting with them. Committee reports. So policy committee, I notice we have a notice of motion. Lorraine, you're chairing that. Do you want to talk a little bit about the notice of motion moving forward?
The information is there for trustees to see, and the revision was based on some recommendations that came forth from the Finance Committee. So hopefully we've met the needs that they wanted.
Any questions about the notice of motion? Okay, none. So just so the notice of motion means it's coming up next meeting, correctly? Thank you. And then the policy meeting, the policy committee didn't have any minutes, so we're good to go?
The minutes were included in the last meeting's package.
So we'll go to the Finance Committee. Diane, anything that you want to report about finance?
We did meet and we did review the check register for March, and it is attached here for approval. And that's all for today.
So Diane, we have minutes as well, so please 8.9, if anybody wants to see the minutes, well, you have the minutes, you've read the minutes. Are there any comments or questions about the minutes before we go to the check register? For Diane? Okay. So 8.10 is the check register. Be it resolved that the board received the March 2023 check register with a total amount of checks issued at $4,238,811.86, reviewed on April 20th, 23 by the Finance Committee for information as submitted. I need a mover and a seconder. Moved by Trustee Rowland, seconded by Trustee Rowan. Any questions? Hearing none, we'll vote. Thank you. It passed 8-0. We did have, there's been some discussion around the check register and about making it, would it be something that we would want to go ahead and make it public? My suggestion is that we take it to that we send it to the Finance Committee, and the Finance Committee then, Trustee Rowland, make a recommendation back to the board, certainly about whether our check register, we should be posting our check register or whatnot. But how about if we pass it to the Finance Committee, the Finance Committee debate it, and then come back to us, and we'll listen to the recommendations that you have. Is that okay with the trustees here? Okay, so I hear all heads nodding. Obviously, I'm getting tired. So Dustin and Art, are you good with this? Truss? Ooh.
Yeah, I'm good with it.
Come here. I know. Okay. Go ahead.
We will add it to our May 15 upcoming committee meeting for discussion.
Good.
18? Sorry.
Thank you.
Sorry.
So we've got here that, so I'm the signing authority for the month of May. We have an Education Foundation Committee verbal report.
Yeah, I'm happy to say that all documentation has been completed. I am meeting with the lawyer next week to review and finalize, cross our T's, dot our I's, and hopefully there's no more information they require from us. But yeah, it's a lot of information to get this amended, and I originally submitted documentation about a year ago, and it took several months for them to review, and now they got back to me early this year to ask for more information. So hopefully the package is complete so we can ship it off. So.
Thank you. We have professional development information there. It's for information for you all. And again, that's why we have some of our trustees aren't here. They're taking some professional development, and thanks for joining us. Divisional summary report. It's information here. It tells us it'll be, let us know, we'll have it on June. We have some board correspondence that's showing the letter that's been sent off to the minister. Nice to know information is certainly all kinds of information. Trustee Nicol.
I don't remember seeing that letter. And it's not on here. It says right up on the chair to Minister of Education. What letter are we talking about?
So it's a letter that
I know what letter we're talking about, but I haven't seen it, and I'd like to see it.
Okay. I guess we need to find it. If that's, I didn't get it to you? No. Okay. So that's my fault, sorry?
Yeah.
I'll get the letter. Thanks. Yeah, it's kind of interesting. Oh, did y'all see the letter? No, it's okay. I haven't sent it to you. Okay. Thank you. I'll get that to you. My apologies. Nice to know information. It's all down there with regard to a number of things that are doing. We have upcoming meetings that are going on. Reminder about the municipal forum on May the 8th. Questions from the public. Jody, do we have any questions from the public?
No, well, we did receive a request or a question, but the individual hasn't provided their address, so if I do get that, I'll provide that information at a later date, but for the most part, no other questions come forward.
Okay, thank you. We do have a motion that's come from in camera, correct? And the motion is, be it resolved that the board offer the position of the Hazel Ridge School Principal effective September the 5th, as recommended by the superintendent. I need a mover and a seconder. Moved by Trustee Nichols, seconded by Trustee Boytson. Comments to that?
Which one is this now?
So this is 17.1, Russ. This is the conversation that we had in camera, right? And part of it, okay? So we're going to go. We don't put in names yet until we voted, and then Kathy needs to let people know about it. So we talked about it in camera, and Kathy will let the applicants know later on today. And then we'll post.
That's fine.
Okay. Okay. Hearing no more questions, we'll vote. So that passed 8-0. Thank you for doing that. That'll give Kathy some work to do right after this meeting. I do believe that we don't have anything else, correct? I'm looking around the table. All right, we're in adjournment. Thanks to Russ and to Dustin for joining us.
Stay on the phone.
Stay on the phone?
Yeah, it was a pleasure.
Oh yeah, we do have a debrief about our meeting, so please stay on the phone. But we're going to sign off from our public meeting. So thanks, everybody.